to have the true impact that you need to have as a leader, you've got to focus on quality, not quantity. You've got to have the select few versus the excessive many.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Heart Inspired, the show dedicated to highlighting individuals in their pursuit of authentic leadership. We peel back the layers to uncover the roadblocks we all face, explore the actions we can take, and how to persevere towards the best version of ourselves. It is my hope that you'll be inspired by their story and gain some insights to help you in your own journey. Elisabeth Galperin is a recovering perfectionist. Her mission is to help clients feel in control of their lives so they can achieve maximum productivity, profitability, and most importantly, peace of mind. In today's show, Elisabeth and I will talk about how we achieve maximum productivity while avoiding burnout. Through her Ascend method, Elisabeth teaches some of the fundamentals that all professionals need for sustainable growth and success. Please welcome my guest, Elisabeth Galperin. Hi, Elisabeth.
Hi, it's good to see you, Michelle.
It is very good to see you as well. We're talking about leadership, especially women leadership. And I know that you have created some really great tools to help with burnout and things like that. But let's start with your transition from corporate into entrepreneur. What was that like?
Sure. So I transitioned in a very slow manner. I'm not a big risk taker.
Okay.
And so my first career, I was a speech language therapist. I worked in the public schools in North Carolina, and then I was actually working at a private practice clinic. When I began to transition, it really was, it was a very scary time for me because I was realizing that the career path I was on, which I thought was going to be my career forever, was not fulfilling, and it was not something I wanted to continue with. And so I transitioned by starting a side hustle.
Oh, okay.
And seeing if I could actually build a business, run a business before fully stepping out of my role. And honestly, if you had asked me, this was in 2007, if you had asked me at that time if I considered myself an entrepreneur, I would have said, no. That's somebody who's a risk taker and has some brand new genius idea that no one's ever done before. And I didn't fully identify with being an entrepreneur. I identified with I'm exploring a new opportunity and can I make this work? So I kind of had one foot in the current career and one foot in, hey, can I do this new thing? And kind of straddled for a while. Had, a couple of people give me the advice that, hey, you got to leap. And it took me a little while to do that.
You had no one behind you pushing you?
Yes, right. For me, it was, I needed to know that there was some level of security while also learning to get comfortable with risk. I had the good fortune of being able to do that. My employer was aware that I was pursuing running my own business, and she supported that. I think that she didn't know that how quickly I would decide that, okay, I want to leave.
Oh, wow.
But
wow.
I had the support. I had her support. I had my husband's support. I had my family support. And that was key, right? Having other people that believed I could do it.
Yeah.
Because there were days where I wasn't sure that it was the right decision. Was I throwing away, quote unquote, a career that I had gone to school for 6 years and pursued for a while. So, when I finally took the leap, I already had a foundation in place. But at that point, that was when I really started to identify with, okay, I do need to tap into entrepreneurial mindset and find the spirit of an entrepreneur, because in some ways I am out here forging a path that I've never forged before. I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. I didn't have a lot of role models necessarily, whose path I felt like I was following. That was when I definitely understood what it took to have the entrepreneurial spirit and to be willing to take risks, and that it was important that I see myself as creative and entrepreneurial and a small business owner.
Let me ask you, when you were doing that, 2007, you were straddling, right?
Yes.
How many years was it before you kind of jumped off that cliff and right into entrepreneur?
Yeah, it was about 3 years.
Okay, so in those 3 years, were there a lot of women leader role models that you kind of emulated or thought, wow, that she's got something going on there, I have to tap into that?
Yes. Looking back, what gave me the courage was that I had found a group of female business owners that were all in the industry of productivity and professional organizing. So there is a national association of professional organizers and productivity experts. And I had discovered this group early, probably in, I don't know, it was probably actually around when I started my business. The North Carolina chapter was 99% women. We might have had one or two men in the
Okay.
group. And it was a extremely supportive group of women who were all doing very similar things, but who were seeing each other as colleagues, not as competitors. There were, several women in that group who were 5 years ahead of me, or, they'd been running their own business for maybe even 10 years, and they were moms, and they were, running a household, and they'd all had former careers as a teacher or as a, HR manager. So I could see, okay, these women made the transition. These women were able to start from zero and build a business. Getting to watch them and learn from them and commune with them. We met monthly. We had brought in lots of great speakers on building a business, and that was industry specific, but also business training. And so that group of women absolutely gave me some role models and some confidence that, hey, all these women have done this. I can do it too.
Embrace competitive. I think Simon Sinek says that, look at them as an ally and not as an enemy kind of thing.
Yes.
I'm paraphrasing, but that's exactly right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very interesting because in a lot of ways, you hear about, and I think these are just, stereotypes that men who collaborate with other men, it's a sports club, it's an old boys club, they high five and they cheer each other on. Whereas women traditionally, you have these great pockets like you found, but traditionally it's, oh, what is she doing? And I'm being territorial and I don't want to show my hand kind of thing. So that was really great that you had that.
It was, and it was very unique. And I recognize that, occasionally people would say, you're in a group of women who all run businesses like you, and you collaborate and you work together, and it would throw people off. So I recognized how valuable that was, and that certainly gave me that boost of confidence that I needed when I decided to go all in.
So tell us a little bit more about your business. Has it evolved? Has it changed? Where was it then, and what are you doing now?
Yes. So it has evolved significantly. When I started my business, I originally named my business Turn Leaf Organizing, and I was helping individuals organize their lives and organize their spaces. At the time, the industry was very focused on the label professional organizing. As I got into doing the work, I recognized that I really was attracted to working with business owners and working with professionals who were looking for support with organization productivity. And then I also recognized that if I was helping somebody who had a physical mess, it was because they didn't have systems in place. They didn't have good time management. They were struggling with what are the executive skills, the ability to make decisions, to think in flexible ways, to initiate, to stay focused. And so I very quickly recognized that I am helping people get organized, but it's more than that. So, and like anybody, when you start a business, you're willing to work with anyone. You're not super selective. So I worked with plenty of people where I was actually doing more organizing of their personal space. But I very quickly recognized where my skill set was and where I could help them most. The 2.0 version of my business was, okay, I'm going to exclusively work with business owners and business leaders, because that's really where I felt like I was using my skills to the fullest. Started transitioning from calling myself a professional organizer to calling myself an organizational coach or a productivity coach. And that was, kind of the way that I was able to more specifically find the ideal client, who I could work with and serve best. When I started my business, I was in the North Carolina area, and then in 2014, I moved back to Cincinnati, Ohio, which is where my family is. And that was where I was able to really kind of reestablish a new audience.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I was able to be, again, very clear that I was in the business of coaching and consulting in around productivity. That was where I had been doing a lot of speaking, but I really picked up the speaking part of my business, doing trainings and speaking, whether it was for a marketing event or for an educational event. 2014, around that time is when I really kind of had a second service line, right? I can work with people individually, but I can also come in and speak and train. And then about 2 years ago, I fully rebranded. I've been using the term peak productivity for some of my programs and some of my speaking. And so rebranded the company to Peak Productivity, which was the best thing I ever could have done. And I drug my feet on doing it. And now I tell folks, don't be afraid to make a change in your business. It was a great transition for me. So, and all throughout, as the business evolved, one of the things that I always made sure was in place was having a group or a coach that could be kind of my board of advisors, right? And so I fully give lots of other people credit for helping me to get more clear on what my business was about and who I was serving and how I was serving best. So as I really leaned into coaching and being a coach and consultant and trainer, for me, it was, having coaches was significant and critical to the growth of my business and helping me make those changes and kind of evolving to where I am now.
100%. One of the things that I am so grateful for when I started my business, and certainly not as many years, although now listening to you going, geez, I wish I knew Elisabeth back then. We could have been in the same group in different states because I'd have been just, taking off. But I'm not a risk taker like you are not a risk taker, but I have a strong drive, but I'm always checking with others. That's just the way I'm wired. Some people just forge ahead and whatever happens, happens. I'm always checking with others. Yeah. And I find that what I do is I'm taking it all in, and then I ultimately make the decision that fits right for me. Yes. And that's what I kind of coach with people as well, is you got to find the right balance for you. Right. It could be a lot of noise, could be a lot of negative noise, but it could also be just enough amount for you to make the decision that's best for you.
Yeah. And you do have to be selective about whose opinion are you asking or whose are you listening to.
That's right. That's right.
People have opinions all day long.
People love giving feedback. And it's like, I didn't ask for that feedback.
Right. So being very critical or selective in whose opinion do I want to hear. But at the end of the day, it's still my decision to be made. Yeah. And that's the important part too, is that you take the responsibility. It wasn't somebody else's idea. No, it's my decision, my idea at the end of the day. Right.
And now that you're in Cincinnati, right? You're in Ohio. It doesn't matter. Your clients could be wherever.
Yes.
So you didn't really lose. It was just the physical part, it might be a little bit more challenging to get to them if that's the case. Tell us about your Ascend method.
These are what I call the 6 fundamentals to accomplishing personal and professional productivity. And so, I've now been working in this industry for over 15 years. And so I've worked with all types of people. I've worked with people at different stages of their life and of their career, all different industries. And these are kind of the 6 core behaviors or strategies that I have seen impact individuals no matter who they are and where they are in life. I love acronyms, and so with the help of a coach, I developed what I call the Ascend method. I'll give you all 6, and then we can dig into all of them or whichever ones are most interesting to you.
Yeah, and before you start, the coach that you worked with, did they explore with you that you brought it out, and are they a coach that's in the same field? What's that relationship like that you were able to create this?
I was working with, it's actually 2 women who are speaking coaches. So I hired them and engaged with them to help me to get really clear on kind of my keynote topics, how to differentiate myself from others out there.
Mm.
And this was what came out of that conversation
Okay.
of, what is the method that you're using with clients? What are the things that you're working on with your clients, no matter, again, who they are and what their goals are. And like any good coach, by asking lots of questions, this is what came out, right? I've been talking about this for 15 years, but I hadn't put it into kind of this succinct model until I had their guidance and their help with it. So A is advocating for self. And this is all about taking care of you before you take care of the world. As women, we tend to put ourselves last on the list, or, we'll save the final 10 minutes of the day when we're exhausted to try to do something for ourselves. So this is really the message of, if you don't take care of yourself, mind, body, spirit, then you won't be able to do the work that you are here to do. So it's helping people to build some discipline and routines and habits around self-care and what makes the biggest impact for them, right? We all have a different formula of what self-care is. And so it's not some prescribed activity. It's, let's define it for you. And then let's make sure that you're committing to the time and the energy to take care of yourself. So advocate for self. The next one is simplifying your focus. So we multitask without even realizing how much we're multitasking. We have to-do lists that are 20 to 40 items long in a day. And we know it's not achievable, but we've kind of created this monster of, I have to do all the things all the time and I can't ever stop.
Right.
And
Every day.
And again, as leaders, when you spread yourself thin like that, you're not going to, you're leading by example, and that's not the example you want to set. And to have the true impact that you need to have as a leader, you've got to focus on quality, not quantity. You've got to have the select few versus, the excessive many. So this is helping clients to really figure out, how are you prioritizing? How are you making sure that you are staying fully focused and present and engaged when you're in a meeting or when you're in a conversation? And how are you making sure that you're not allowing all the noise and the demands from outside to infiltrate and to take you off course? This is a big one for sure. And this can take, sometimes it's even hard to figure out what our focus should be because we're so used to doing so many things, right? So they're all significant and important, but that's a really important one. The C in Ascend stands for communicating boundaries. Again, this is something that I don't know that anyone really masters it. You have to continually be working on this skill set. So
I think for women, it's hard for us to say no.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, with a lot of my clients, we practice. How will you respond no if you're asked to step on a new committee or if you're asked to take on a project that you don't have the capacity for? And we actually practice it and kind of create a script for being able to have the clarity and have the confidence to say no. So again, where are there some boundaries that have not been set and you have to kind of go back and reestablish them? Are there boundaries that some people are respecting and others are not? And how do you make sure that it is being respected by all? And then, what is the right way to communicate the boundaries? Because there's a great way and there's also a bad way to put up boundaries. And so this is exploring what boundaries are going to have the greatest impact and who do we need to talk to and work with to get those boundaries in place. Any training I'm at, any, just casual conversation I'm in, the word boundary tends to pop up. It's definitely a hot topic right now. The E is about eliminating distractions and interruptions.
That goes with boundaries.
Exactly. And as I'm going through this, you can see that they really kind of layer together,
of
right?
Course.
You can't really extrapolate them. A big piece of this too is just taking a step back and looking at how many bings and rings and pings are you experiencing on your phone, on your tablet, on your watch. We have made ourselves so accessible to others. I mean, not just others' needs, but just the 24/7 news cycle. And we are over available and over informed, honestly. And so how do you make sure that you get rid of some of those defaults, whether it's a default setting on your technology or a default behavior of yours, and be very strategic about when do I want to have information be put in front of me?
Yeah.
When do I want to be available to social media, and when do I need to put up a boundary so that I can't even access it? And distractions come internal. That's when we let the little thoughts that pop in our head, we let ourselves follow them. Interruptions are outside coming in. And so again, going back to, you got to have some boundaries to minimize the interruptions. So this is, we kind of take a snapshot of your life, a day in the life of Michelle, and then look and see how many times did I allow a message, a phone call, a noise outside, a request from, a friend or a colleague to, again, send me in a different direction, or interrupt my thought, or, take the time away that I intended to do A, and then I started doing B because they asked. Becoming aware is the first step. And then being proactive.
Because you are going to fall off the wagon, but you can get yourself right back into focus again. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes it is the right choice to follow the interruption, or to allow somebody's need to succeed your own. But you want to do that. You want to be aware of that versus just letting yourself where the wind blows you, right?
Exactly.
The next component is about being proactive. So I call this navigating your priorities, and being proactive. So you've got to plan your work before you work your plan, right? We've all heard it. We all know it. But do you actually dedicate time at the beginning of the week to map out your week, beginning of the day, to identify your most important tasks? How reactive are you versus do you have some of these good habits in place to be proactive? And so again, having a ritual or having a routine, when you start your workday, that shouldn't be jumping into email. It should be looking at your calendar, looking at your task management tool, and creating the plan. So it's a muscle that a lot of people have to rebuild and flex, because we're so used to being reactive. The final component then is the D, is develop systems. So the more we can create routine and process out of those preceding steps, but also kind of at the next level in your business, the more you have systems where you have a defined way of doing things again and again and again, the more you are saving yourself time, energy, money, the more you're building then a sustainable life for yourself, but also a sustainable business. So once you have systems in place, you don't have to be the only one to implement the systems. Then you're ready for team. Then you're ready to delegate and outsource. So that's kind of the final phase of being able to now take what you've built for yourself from a productivity level, and then allow this to impact the company, the team, and the organization.
Yeah. When you have those systems in place and they become habits, because I'm huge on systems. In fact, this is the time of the year that I did it last year when it was year one in my business, and I'm doing it again this year, is assessing the tools that I use for my business. What works, what could be tweaked, what doesn't serve me anymore. But when you have those systems in place, it just frees up time to do other things that are more valuable, developing the habit, because anytime you learn something new, it's a little bit clunky. It might be like, I remember the first time someone introduced me to Miro, and I thought, this is horrible. I can't figure it out. It was driving me nuts. I said, I'm wasting time. But then once I got it, it was like, okay, this is just, it's like writing, it just becomes second nature. When you're doing this with groups, Elisabeth, what's the maximum amount of people? That's part A of this question. And part B, do you ever get people who are just resistant to, this isn't for me? Maybe one of the few is good, but what's the message you can give to somebody who's just resistant to change?
I always start conversations, or particularly if I'm speaking to a group, I always start with this statement. What you hear today, not everything is going to land, right? Not everything is going to be aha. Find 1 to 2, I call them golden nuggets, and start there. Look for one thing that you can say, you know what, I could implement that pretty easily. I could even start that tomorrow. and start with the one small change. And usually people they can digest that, right?
Yeah.
They might still look at some of this and say, oh, that's so lofty. This might work for you, but this wouldn't work for me. But when it's like, well, what's one little thing you could do differently? Well, I guess I could turn off my notifications on my phone because you're right, those bother me. Okay, great. Start there. Right.
Yeah.
So that's always my message is what resonates most on what's the easiest thing for you to take a hold of and put into place, and then be curious. It might not work for you. That's fine. But just start with an attitude of curiosity.
Yeah.
Because then you're in neutral, right? You're not saying this has to work or this will never work. You're in that, I wonder if this will work.
Yeah.
And that usually puts down kind of the people's defenses, right? When they tend to be more skeptical.
Yeah, that's good.
When it comes to like groups, your question of groups. So the power of group is that you're creating accountability with one another.
Awesome.
And so if I'm coaching a group, I'm still maybe only seeing them at best once a week. I remind, especially if it's a team within an organization, you want to identify one partner in your team who can serve as your accountability partner. And then that's the daily work of, did I meet my goal? Can I share a win with my colleague?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of the guide, but like that's your partner.
Right.
And so as long as people tap into that power of an accountability partner, then I can serve a large group, right? Because I'm doing the leading, but then on the day-to-day, they've got somebody by their side.
Yeah, that's brilliant, because when you have a work colleague, you could either have broken boundaries because they feel like they could just dump all over you, or they could be your best allies to keep you moving forward and reaching some goals. So that's brilliant that you set the stage that way. When you were talking about the distractions, it reminded me when I was in travel industry world, we lived in reactive. We lived in, we had to react to everything that was happening, but we lived by having phones by our beds and desks because whatever's happening in the world impacted our day. Well, now that I'm not in that, my phone is not near my bed. Sorry, guys, if you're trying to reach me, it's not happening. And I don't turn it on. I don't look at the social media, because social media, it's like, oh, what are they doing? Oh, they got it better than me. Or, oh, look at her. And, it's just so much noise. So even if you do 5-10 minutes without your phone before you have your coffee or whatever you do, stretch it out. I'm up to almost a half an hour to an hour, and sometimes it's 2 hours. So it really does make a huge difference not to have that outside noise impact and dictate what your day is going to be like. So smart. You've evolved your company, which sounds great, and the organizations. You're doing some speaking engagements. I saw that you did something recently. Was it NBC or something like that, an affiliate? Tell us about that, because I want to celebrate your win.
Oh, thank you. Well, in working with my speaking coaches, one of the things that they helped me with was creating a press release and submitting some PR to get picked up by a media channel. So I had the good fortune of going live on Low Country Live, which is a South Carolina affiliate of ABC, and getting to share my Ascend method. That was an intention that we set at the very beginning of the work that we did together. That was utilizing my resources. So one of my speaker coaches, she's a PR expert. So it was using her resource. I don't know if you believe in manifestation, right? But was, okay, I am going to get a media spot, and I need to do all the work to make it happen, but I also have to believe that it's going to happen, and then use my resources. So not be afraid to ask, right? And to, put your name out there again and again and again until you get a yes. And so
that's awesome.
So it was very fun. It was, as much as I love speaking, knowing that I was going to be on television brought back the nerves of that speaker's experience, but it was good. It's good to get out of your comfort zone and reach the next level. So it was definitely a big win for me. Thank you for asking about that.
I love celebrating a win. That's one of my taglines. Somebody asked me recently, they wanted to collaborate on business. And I said, I don't think I'm the right fit for you, just based on the industry that he was in and what he was looking for. But he's like, okay, great, whatever. And it was in LinkedIn, and I said, okay, well, have a great day, and don't forget to celebrate a win. And he wrote back, he was like, oh, I love that. It's like, yeah, who doesn't want to celebrate a good win for the day? It makes you feel good.
I talk about that with a lot of my clients, because in our drive to be as productive as possible and as successful as possible, we focus so much on what have I not gotten to yet, right? What have I not accomplished?
Self-sabotage.
Yes. And so you're right. Like at the end of the day, I have a couple clients where the first couple of weeks that we work together, one of their homework is, at the end of the day, write down 2 to 3 things that you are proud of accomplishing for the day. Yeah. And it can be, I was able to get my son to his doctor appointment. Fantastic. I got up on time and I didn't hit snooze 3 times. Fantastic. It could be anything, but you've got to celebrate the wins, big and small. Because otherwise you're constantly focused on, what have I not done? What have I not accomplished? How much further do I need to go? So I'm right there with you on that.
Oh, that's awesome. Elisabeth, this has been so much fun having you on here. I love talking to fellow leaders and admiring all the successes that you've had. I love the work that you're doing with teams and stuff. It's just exactly what I love to talk about. So all the best to you and your family. And, hopefully I'll see you on another TV, some announcement or something like that,
I'll keep celebrating the wins. I promise.
Yes. Keep celebrating the wins. You be well. Thank you again for being on the show.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you again for listening. We'll be back soon with a brand new episode of the Heart Inspired podcast. Until then, I'm your host, Michelle Delgado. I welcome you to support the show by rating us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. To learn more about Heart Metrics Consulting, book a strategy call by visiting the website at heartmetrics.com.